It's no secret that writing can be lonely work, but does it really have to be? Whether you're full-time, part-time, or just starting out, you'll get insights into the tricks, tips, and production habits of writers from every level of the biz. From best-selling authors to those launching their first novels, you're sure to be in the company of friends as we encourage great writers to divulge and share their secrets. This is the Great Writers Share podcast with your host, best-selling author, Daniel Wilcox.
Hello and welcome to the Great Writers Share podcast with me, Daniel Wilcox, where every week I hijack an hour or so of time from some of the kindest and hardest working writers around today to join me on the show and discuss everything that makes them tick, roar and bounce. Today's day, as of recording, is Wednesday, the 11th of March, so this is actually going to go out on the day that the patrons get this episode, and by the time other people are hearing this on the feed, 2 days' time, for those who need the math. I'll jump straight into my personal update. We've got a packed show today, so there's lots to get through. I'm excited to announce that I'm currently sat in my long-sleeved Great Writers Share jumper/shirt. It's kind of like a middle ground, which is perfect for this kind of weather in England because it's not quite warm yet. It's coming out of the cold snap, so it's that perfect kind of balance to keep me warm. But it looks fantastic, and I'm very, very happy to be sporting my own merch. As longer-term listeners of the show know, I've been wanting to rep my own merch just because I'm an egotist. But for anyone who does want to look at getting some merchandise from the show, you can just go over to www.danielwilcox.com/Great Writers Share, and there's loads of information there about the show and how to get your hands on merchandise. So definitely check that out. I've got, after last week's slam full of interviews, I ended up recording 3 interviews with people last week, including this one and a couple more that we've got coming out that I'm very excited to share with you. It's a much quieter week for myself this week, and I've deliberately left some gap so I can breathe and recover and focus on some of my fiction projects. But as of next week, I'll be diving into an interview with Joanna Penn. So I just wanted to put a shout out on the podcast live that if anyone wants to get involved and ask Joanna any questions directly, as I know she's a bit of a powerhouse in terms of independent fiction. She's someone I've spoken to on a couple of occasions before, and she's fantastic. So if you want to ask her anything specific, then please either go over to www.patreon.com/Great Writers Share, where you can support the show for as little as $1 a month. And that will give you priority in terms of the questions that are asked at the end of the interview. Or if you're interested in jumping over to the Facebook group, just go over to www.facebook.com/groups/Great Writers Share. Links will be in the show notes for anyone that just wants to click over and not worrying about typing. And throw your questions in there. As I say, it's going to be definitely an interesting one. Every time I speak to Joanna, there's some kind of nuggets of wisdom that pop out. And definitely, if you want the chance to ask her questions and get involved on either of those 2 routes, and it'll be well worth your while. My final little bit of update is that I am super excited and pumped at the minute, and I don't know if anyone will resonate with this, but there's always a point where you begin working on a project or you conceive of a project and you get sort of excited, you get into it, and it doesn't really come alive really until you see the cover art. And I've just had a piece of cover art commissioned for a project that I mentioned previously, the fiction project that I'm not yet ready to dive into and let you guys know all about it, but I definitely will in the coming months. And oh my God, I'm so happy with the art that's come out. A couple of tweaks to be done, but it makes the whole thing seem real. The minute you can see a book cover, I really feel like it wraps everything together and gives you the vibe and the tone of everything you're trying to achieve. And it's just a fantastic reference point, because if you can angle your book towards what you're telling your readers the book is going to be about by the first point of contact that they see, which is the cover, then you're optimizing your chances for a home run. I'm not going to say it's going to guarantee success, but it's definitely going to increase your odds if you can convince someone with the cover of the book they're going to read and then deliver that story and just streamline the whole process. I think personally for me, I've read a few books where the cover is promised one thing and then the story is promised another, and that's really that gets sort of my hackles raised a little bit. I don't enjoy that experience as much. So now I know what it's going to look like. I can gun down that avenue and I can really deliver the story that I want to deliver. I'm so excited for it, as you can probably tell by my voice. But enough about me. I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview on our guest today. So it's actually going to be my first ever double interview with the one and only HB LYNE, Holly LYNE and Angeline Trevena. Make sure I get that right, as I got that wrong when we first started recording. And Holly and Angeline are the authors behind the Unstoppable Authors podcast. They're the powerhouses behind the UK's Indie Fire Writers Conference, which is upcoming in May. And we go a lot into collaboration and what their partnership looks like and they've taken on a business partnership together that let me try that again. Their business partners. Wow, I really cannot say this, but I'm going to leave this in because I feel like it's entertaining for me, let alone you guys. They're business partners with the podcast and events, and they are looking into becoming partners in terms of fiction and co-writing. So for anyone who wants to look into that space and wants to find out a little bit more about collaboration and co-writing and how that can vary, because it's individual to every single collaboration you create. We go quite in depth into how they got together, the kind of things they're doing together, how they manage it all. We also go a lot into running events. So if anyone's thinking of running an event themselves, we go a little bit into that. And we talk a lot about their podcast and the transformations that has taken along its journey over the last couple of years and how it died and then revived and all that wonderful good stuff. So definitely loads to dive into there. One final shout out for Patreon. I mentioned it earlier, so I'm not going to go into where you can jump onto Patreon, but just to say that any support that you pledge is massively supported from my side. This month's monthly giveaway is Dear Writer, You Need to Quit by Becca Syme. So if anyone wants to get involved in the monthly giveaway, then hop on over to Patreon and their support for as little as $1, and you can get involved to win a free book, which is one of the, I keep saying this every week, it's one of the best books I've read. I wouldn't just say this year, because it's been a short year, but definitely the last couple of years in terms of motivation and realigning what you should be doing in order to deliver and be as productive as you can be. And it talks a lot about individualization, which I am a massive proponent of at the minute. One final point of information before we go through into the interview is that I want to thank the people who answered last week's question, which was, how do you keep yourself motivated to achieve your writing goals? And Holly, who is on this interview, so this is very, very appropriate, and she goes a little bit into this in the actual interview herself, puts, having a business partner really helps me, but also accountability groups of other writers and announcing my plans to my readers really helps. Once it's out there, I have to make good on it. Making your accountability public is a massive help. Particularly when it comes to just knowing that there'll be people counting on you and you've declared that, and the minute you say it out loud in front of people, it just becomes all the more real. So definitely a good tip there, Holly. Thank you, and looking forward to listening to your interview shortly. And Dan Howarth says, soul-crushing guilt for missing a writing session does it for me. Absolutely, for me as well. He continues, generally though, I compare what I do instead of writing to actually writing, as in, will this benefit my life more than writing? The answer is generally no, and that keeps me going. And I am completely the same, Dan. It actually sounds like I've written that answer, but I haven't. But I'm the same. I'll always, if I find myself procrastinating, I will look back to how will I feel at the end of the day? How will I feel at the end of the week? Is this contributing to where I want to go? And 9 times out of 10, the answer is no. Sometimes you do need a break, and that's okay. But 9 times out of 10, you can normally say that watching that video on YouTube or answering that message on Facebook probably isn't actually getting you closer towards the goals that you're trying to reach. So definitely trying to put yourself in the shoes of who you will be further down the line, and whether or not you'll appreciate or regret the decision that you're currently making is a massive one. I definitely resonate with that a lot. Based off of this interview, next week's question is going to be, are you fiercely indie, hybrid, or determined to go the traditional route? Tell me why. You can post your answer into the Facebook group, on Patreon, or just tag me on social media at WilcoxAuthor, or use the hashtag GreatWritersShare. Without any further ado, let's dive into the interview with the two and onlys, HB LYNE and Angeline Trevena.
HB LYNE and Angeline Trevena are the power duo behind the Unstoppable Authors podcast and the masterminds behind the UK's Indie Fire Writers Conference. They each write across the science fiction and fantasy genres, and I'd be doing a disservice if I didn't give each of them a highlight from their own respective bios. Angeline Trevena is a British science fiction, fantasy and horror author. Creator of the Paper Duchess series, she is best known for her feminist brand of dystopia. She's been writing stories since she was old enough to hold a pen, and after gaining a BA Hons degree in drama and writing, she honed her craft with horror and fantasy shorts, which are published in numerous magazines and anthologies. HB LYNE, known as Holly in this interview, has always lived close to the dark side, never quite mastering the ability to force choke, but contemplating it during dark times, as we all. These days, when not chasing two chaotic munchkins around, Holly somehow engineers time to write fantasy. Her series, Echoes of the Past, is a tale of one young shapeshifter's epic struggle to reconcile her humanity with her inner demon, whilst battling with very real demons who threaten both humans and shifters alike. Holly, Angeline, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey, it's fantastic to have you both. And for long-term listeners of this podcast, this is the first interview where I'll be talking to two of you at once, which is a little overwhelming on my part, but we'll power through and we'll see how this goes. But the first question I wanted to throw out to you guys is, what is your origin story? How did the two of you start getting into business together?
It was an odd one, wasn't it, Holly? It was one of those weird moments because we originally met on Facebook, didn't we?
Yeah.
We originally met we have both done the Nick Stevenson's Your First 10K Readers course, and we actually met in his Facebook group for people on that course. And I actually ended up accidentally organising a huge sci-fi and fantasy con at my local library. It was a complete accident. And Holly wanted to come along and have a stall. And that was the first time we actually physically met in person. And then there was this strange thing that happened where we both had the exact same idea pretty much at the exact same time after having met in person, that we wanted to work together, didn't we?
Yeah, I thought I'd listened to Angeline's podcast. It was the Great Western Woods World Building podcast, and I'd noticed that it had stopped. And and I was really itching to collaborate with somebody, and we'd got along so well. And so I sent a message saying, I was wondering, like, we could maybe like restart your podcast together as a joint thing. And she was like, oh my God, I have the same thought. So it was like this weird synchronicity. And so here we are.
Yeah, because Holly is the dependable, organised one. I'm the flaky one.
So she compliments you. She's the yin to your yang.
Yes, 100%. She makes me do stuff.
And that's something that I definitely want to go into, because obviously right away there you brought up collaboration, which is fantastic. And obviously there's a reason there are two of you on the show. Had either of you thought of collaborating before, and what were your views on collaboration before you actually got into partnership with each other?
Yeah, like I hadn't, but I really wanted to. There were a few people that I really looked up to who had fantastic collaborative working relationships, and I wanted a piece of that, I suppose. And but I for a long time I didn't know how to even like how to initiate anything like that, and I didn't really have anyone in my life already that I felt was a good fit until I met Angeline.
It's like a love story.
It is.
Spin off and make this one.
I had never thought of collaborating with anyone else because I'm just a total control freak. but it really was just one of those weird synchronicity, just the universe aligning kind of things, wasn't it?
And what was it about each other specifically that made you say yes? Because obviously when you go into collaboration, there are 1,000 things to consider. There are friction points that people have and things that they're not willing to relent on. And obviously choosing the right partner to collaborate on, whether it is a podcast, an event, or a book, it is really difficult to take that leap and try and build that trust and engage in a way that sort of helps you both and helps you both. So what was it specifically about each other, without making each other blush, that made you think, yes, this is a good fit, this is what I'm going to go for?
For me, the most important thing was that I felt we were both at the same point in our careers and our goals aligned so well. And I think for any relationship, whether it's like a marriage or a friendship or anything, I think that is the most important thing, that you're both on the same page at the same point and ready to move forward in the same way together.
Yeah, absolutely. Because in the lead up to this, we had like a little mastermind group that we were both part of, and we'd been having like regular sort of goal setting meetings, like, you know, over the internet, with a few other people as well, and we just really clicked, didn't we? And just got on so well, and so often we were having like complementary struggles and helping each other, and so that was kind of the foundation of it, really. So we knew each other quite well already. I wouldn't have made the decision to become partners with someone who I didn't already know quite well. I think that, you know, that's the foundation of how we got together and why it works so well.
Of course, we hate each other now.
Yeah, can't stand each other now.
That makes sense. How do you manage the communication of your relationship? Because like you said there, it can sometimes be comparable to like a real relationship, like a romantic relationship in some levels. But how do you guys sort of manage communicating to each other? Do you have times where you switch off, or is it very sort of all-encompassing? I know some of my collaborations have literally felt like I've been in a romantic relationship with someone without all of the other stuff. But what's it like between you guys?
We refer to each other as work wives, don't we?
We do, yeah. And whenever I say partner to anyone, I always have to be like, business partner. Just to clarify, we're not a couple. But yeah, I mean, we communicate daily. We have our own like little Discord chat, and we're always in touch with each other. And we certainly, for my part anyway, if we have a problem, if there's a bump, we talk about it straight away, and make sure that we know what is going on in each other's lives. And if there's a problem that means we can't do as much work for the business, then we just try to keep it open. And I think that's a big part of why it's working well. I really hope Angeline agrees.
No, I do. And I think it really helps that we are both busy mums with young children, because we're totally understanding, like if the other person cancels last minute or is late to a meetup or anything like that, we totally understand. We can empathize with that.
Yeah.
And for people who are looking to collaborate with someone, obviously you alluded there a little bit to the fact that honesty is very, very key, and sort of being upfront and not trying to hide anything, just complete transparency is sort of crucial to collaboration. But do you guys have any tips for anyone out there who maybe is by themselves, maybe is thinking, collaboration might be a way to go forward, and what would you suggest to those to find a collaborator and potentially pursue that kind of route?
Oh, going back to like the marriage analogy again, don't jump into a partnership with somebody that you've just met. Like we knew each other, like we said, we knew each other online for quite a long time. We'd done a lot of group chats together before we then met in person, and then we decided, so have a long engagement before you get married, basically. Because it's like when you move in with somebody, you suddenly discover they have all these awful habits that you had never noticed before.
And what are some of these habits?
Yeah, no, we're not going to answer that one.
No, I was just joking. But yeah, you were saying about obviously a long engagement, obviously getting to be familiar with who you're working with. Is there anything else around that you'd sort of suggest?
I think be open to their input. It's no good if you go into it with a set idea of exactly how it's going to work. If it's a collaboration, then it goes two ways, and you need to be at least a bit flexible, and really take on board what the other person is bringing to the relationship.
Do you guys, because I'm always curious about this, in terms of the actual, I guess, administration of collaborations, do you guys have any paper things in place for the stuff that you're doing together, or any sort of like agreements, or is it all very much a trust-based system at the minute between you guys?
You mean all the things we should have in place?
Yeah, no, I'm exactly the same. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, we've talked about it so many times about, we should have contracts and stuff like that. But it is completely based on trust at the moment, isn't it?
It is. And we have like a shared bank account and stuff. Like there's a lot of trust involved. But yeah, we're talking about co-writing together later this year, and we've built a world, shared world that we're both going to write in, and we definitely need to have a contract for that, because we're talking about splitting royalties and stuff. So I think it depends on the situation and exactly what's going on, but so far, touch wood, it hasn't really been necessary, but it's definitely something we do need to address.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm curious because I'm asking obviously for some of the collaborations I have myself, and I'm very much in a similar situation with you guys. But I wonder if you guys feel the same. There's almost like a level of maybe fear is the wrong word, but there's an intensity that comes with presenting a piece of paper that says, okay, this is our established boundaries. And sometimes, for me anyway, it feels nicer to have the trust-based system where it feels a lot more friendly and a lot more than sort of formalizing the process and saying, okay, here's the XYZs of how we're going to operate. Do you guys agree with that?
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah. And I'm the worry. I'm the one who will disappear off into the sunset with the money. If it's like any of us, it will be me.
There you go. Good to know. I'm hoping that's not an exclusive thing you've just announced on the podcast. And that Holly's more than aware of this.
I'm suddenly very nervous.
Yeah, like, uh-oh.
Yeah. But yeah, you spoke a little bit about co-writing, which was something that I was going to ask as well, because obviously you guys have worked together on the podcast, which I want to go a little bit into the rebranding of all that as well a little bit later on. You guys are running the event together, so you're sort of already, I guess, knee deep into knowing how each other works, knowing sort of the positions that you take when you're working on these things. How are you looking to approach co-writing, and does that vary in any particular way to the other projects that you're doing?
Yeah, I think it's a completely new and different angle for us. And like Angeline's already said about being a control freak. And I talked about this when I interviewed you, Jan. We decided we couldn't go all in and write one story together because we're both too controlling. So having a shared world was like a compromise. It's a halfway house. So yeah, but it feels, because we're each writing our own novellas in one shared world, we have control over our own little bit, and that's not at all how we work with everything else. Everything is a bit of both of us all the time. So we both write our podcast scripts together. We both, will do bits of admin and bits of editing and bits, we kind of spread all the tasks between us. So the co-writing is different. I think it feels quite different to me anyway.
Yeah, definitely. But I think writing fiction is such a personal thing, isn't it? Everyone talks about how, like, when you publish a book, it's like publishing your baby. And it is much more personal, whereas like our Instagram account, for example, we post alternate days, don't we?
Yeah.
So, but that's Instagram, that's just bunging up a picture and writing a bit of text, but writing a book is such a huge personal thing. So, plus, I think it's really nice that we'll be sticking to our own styles of writing rather than trying to force ourselves to write as if one person wrote it.
It definitely dispels some of the notion that co-writing is literally throwing yourselves into the same book. And I love this idea of building the world and working sort of individually within that world to bolster its future success. How are you managing the actual world building? Are you using particular softwares? How are you creating the world that you're both going to be writing in?
We created it last year live on Instagram, which is a little bit different. We had a set of 30 prompts, and we literally we spoke to each other about it. We didn't just, it wasn't like, one day I was doing history, so I just wrote the history and put it on Instagram, and Angeline was like, oh right, okay, so that's the history. No, we discussed it, and we wrote down points for everything, but kind of on a day by day basis, and built it up gradually over that month or so that we were working on it. So yeah, the world is kind of built.
Yep.
It's definitely an exciting way to go. I'm going to switch a little bit from the collaborating and the writing fiction and go a little bit into, you mentioned earlier, the Great Western Woods World Building podcast and how that has now become the Unstoppable Authors podcast. How did that rebrand come about? Are you guys sort of happy with how it's going? And tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so as Holly said, I started this podcast ages ago, like a couple of years ago maybe. I called it the Great Western Woods because I am a total Chronicles of Narnia fanatic. And before starting my podcast, I had watched lots of webinars and read lots of blogs about how to do it. And one thing they all said was, don't choose like a quirky, clever title that sort of like hides what you're actually doing. be up front and make your title really clear that it shows what your podcast is about. But of course I ignored that and went, no, I want a quirky title that shows my love of the Chronicles of Narnia. So plus it's also incredibly difficult to say.
Yes.
So basically all of the podcast naming advice, I threw it out the window and called it what I wanted to call it. So we started off with it as Great Western Woods World Building Podcast, and that was fine. But yeah, I can't even, whose idea was it? Was it sort of like, it was another one of those things.
Yeah, because we'd been doing a lot of topics that were nothing to do with world building. And we always had, like, ever since we started together last April, we had done a mixture of world building and other stuff. And it was starting to be the case that it was maybe only 1 in 3 episodes, or 1 in 4 even, was about world building. And I was starting to feel like, the title really didn't reflect what we were doing. And so we talked about it, and then we kind of shelved the idea. We were like, we'll later. Yes, we should probably rename it, but not now. And then it came up again, and I was interviewing Brian Cohen, and we knew this interview was coming up, and it was also coming up to New Year, and we were like, do you know what, now might be a really good time to change it. And so it was quite a quick decision. Once the decision was made, it was like, right, here we go, bang, bang, bang. And Angeline quickly designed a new logo, and
by accident again.
Yeah.
I literally bung 2 pictures together, turned one of them, and we were like, wow, that's it.
That's the one.
It is really effective branding. I remember saying to you, Holly, that I love the new podcast art and everything about it. It definitely screams the message that you guys are after. I'm curious, how did you, Holly, approach that subject initially when it came to sort of the idea of whether or not you were both looking at that rebranding stuff? Obviously, you're then having a hand in something that's already got this legacy, this existence of what's already been there. How did you go about initiating those conversations, and did you have any sort of expectations going in there? Was that quite difficult for you all?
No, I was a little bit nervous because, I knew the name was, very sentimental to Angeline. And I didn't know how receptive she was going to be. But I think just from the openness of our relationship that we had all along, it wasn't too bad. I kind of knew she would be open to hearing it. So yeah, and it was just a casual, sort of text message, just kind of, what do you think about renaming? Should we talk about that? And
and I was like,
yes,
I've been considering that anyway. Like I said, I'm really flaky, so.
I think it's a sign of a good collaboration, like you say, when you can approach those subjects, and even if there is a little bit of apprehension behind it, you can put forward the ideas that you want to and not worry about sort of getting reprimanded, or even if it is a no, then sort of moving on and getting over that.
Yeah, absolutely. And Angeline has been incredibly welcoming, in terms of bringing me into what was her creation initially. And a number of times, Angeline has thanked me for making
saving
her. Yeah. I didn't want to say that.
No, but it was a failed project. I had completely stopped recording podcasts. And Holly, she really is my yin to my yang. She's the organised one that makes us actually do what we say we're going to do when we say we're going to do it.
Can you speak a little bit then to accountability with collaborations and how that has helped you become more accountable and deliver on the things that you say you're going to do?
Yeah, Holly's like the accountability queen.
Yeah, it's something I'm really hot on, because I know I need it. I'm not that organized by nature, really. When left to my own devices, things tend to not get done, and I will procrastinate and not do the things that I tell myself I want to. So that was a big part of why I wanted a partner to collaborate with, because I saw how well it worked for other people having that accountability, and I was like, I think I need that. I think I would accomplish so much more. And I really have. It's been the most incredible year, because it works for our, certainly on my part, for writing as well. Like, even though we're not, we have our own separate fiction and non-fiction writing going on, and as individual projects, because I have this really strong accountability partner. When I say to Angeline, like, this is my schedule, this is what I've got planned for the year, I know I have to stick to it, because we've arranged our joint projects with those things in mind. So if I flake out on something, it throws everything out. So it really, really works.
Yeah, absolutely, because it really is everything. Like, if we drop the ball on one of our joint projects, then it impacts our solo projects as well. So yeah, it's just we're good for each other, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so.
I definitely geek out about this kind of organisation stuff, because I'm exactly the same as you, in terms of I am crap at being organised by myself, but I'm good when I have other people that I know are depending on me for certain things. How do you guys, do you have any particular systems, again looking at potentially like softwares, how do you guys manage your overview of what you've got going on, and do you guys have, I don't know, regular meetings? How does that look for you?
It's a bit ad hoc, isn't it?
It is a bit, yeah. We've started out using Trello, and we still, dip in and out of it, but it's not as key as it was. But in the beginning, we put everything on there. So if you're not familiar with the app, it's sort of a calendar list making app, and you have boards for topics, and then you create lists, and within those lists you create cards that have individual tasks on, and checklists and things like that. And we set that up, and we used that quite a lot, didn't we, in the early days? And that helped us kind of get a rhythm going. Like, we had a checklist for everything that needed doing for a specific episode. So it'd be like, pick a topic, write a script, record, edit, promote, and we could get each week, or each other week as it was at the time, go through that and tick things off. And that helped us form a good routine. But as we've developed over the last year, we don't need it so much, because we know what we're doing with that. So yeah, it's
a good way just to form the foundation of where you're going to go. And again, I'm very similar to you guys in that I have all the intentions of creating lists and doing all this stuff, but then there is a certain point where it's diminishing returns, and you actually get bogged down by admin as opposed to being helped by it.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. Speak to me a little bit about the Indie Fire Writers Conference. How did that all come about, and what's your sort of long-term goals with this event?
That was another one of my crazy ideas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm that person who has the crazy idea and then drags other people along with it. So I really like writing conferences. I really like events. Like I say, I accidentally started organising a sci-fi and fantasy event. So I've done events management before, and I've done it before that as well. And it's something I really enjoy doing. And I was just getting, I felt that a lot of the writing conferences at the moment they're not anti-indie author, but actively not letting us. They can be more towards the traditional.
Yeah.
So
just kind of by default, it's not like a malicious.
It's not like we don't like indies. It's just like because it's the traditional publishing world. And so I really wanted to make something that was just for indie authors, just for us.
And so that's the whole premise behind it, is specifically for the independent community.
Yeah. Absolutely. 100%. Yeah.
Fantastic.
All of the authors that we have coming are independent authors and are going to be talking about running your own author business.
Yeah.
And did you want to, I don't know if you want to just mention a couple of the guests and some of the things that they'll be talking about for anyone that might be listening who is in the UK and could be interested in attending?
Yeah, sure. We have the fabulous Sasha Black, who hosts the Rebel Author podcast and writes fantastic non-fiction, and she's a fantasy fiction author as well. She's going to be running a workshop for us on writing better prose. We've got
we've got all sorts, which is great. We've got an editor running a workshop. The lovely Dion Winton Pollock is running a workshop all about editing, and we've even got one from a cover designer, haven't we? Shelley Horst is going to be talking about cover designing, which is fantastic. We got Duncan P. Bradshaw is going to be talking about how to write the weird. He writes some weird fiction. So if you want to write something really bizarre, he's the man.
And we've got Meg Cowley. She's going to be talking about how to make a living as a writer. And Ken
Preston as well is talking about how to write fast, even when you don't want to write, which is most of the time.
So what would you say are the main benefits of taking charge and running your own event? Because I'm guessing there are a lot of people out there who love the idea of running an event, but it might not necessarily be for everyone. So what are your sort of thoughts behind people who should and shouldn't run an event themselves?
Start small. Yeah. If you've never done it before, start small. Now, the reason that I felt able to do the first one that I did was because I am a regular attendee of the Edge Lit Writers Conference in Derby, and Alex, who runs that, did a workshop there a couple of years ago that was all about running your own writing events, and I went to that and I wrote pages and pages of notes on what he said, and that was my basis. So I totally advise, if you can find a workshop or a webinar or a course or anything about how, go and do that before you even think about organizing your own event. It is a lot of work and there are so many unknowns.
Yeah, I think you have to be quite tenacious and, able to not take no for an answer. So, I think it's helped that we've been so persistent, and I think being in it together as well, being able to share the load, makes a big difference. There's no way I could do anything like this on my own. So.
No, I couldn't, no.
How do you divide the workload between yourselves? What does that look like?
We just kind of
do it.
Yeah, we don't have a system or anything, but I think we know each other's strengths and weaknesses. So Angeline is brilliant at doing graphics and stuff, so it's just kind of natural for her to just take those tasks on. And then we just we look at what needs doing, and if yesterday I had some extra child free time and I was like, what's our priority? Oh, this. So I took it and got on with it because I knew I had the time right then and there to do it. So we just kind of do that, really. It's kind of ad hoc.
Yeah.
Nice, perfect. Yeah. How, because obviously we're in the height, or what is coming up to the height of a global pandemic in terms of the coronavirus. How has that, how are you guys treating that in regards to, obviously you're running an event and it might be clear by then, but is that anything that you've consciously got in your mind of hosting a place where there are hundreds of people together in one location?
It is very, very much on my mind. Now that London Book Fair's been cancelled, I'm looking at that as well. But I'm very much looking at it from the positive side. I'm a glass half full person anyway, but ours is a very small event. We're only selling 100 tickets. It's a very small, intimate, personal event. And so, yes, absolutely, if huge events get cancelled, we'll still be there. We'll still be running. And, we haven't, because I think really the nail in the coffin for London Book Fair was the number of huge companies that were pulling out. And we don't have that. We're independent. We're all about independent authors. And so we haven't got that worry of a huge company, it being their company policy that they're not doing events this year. And fingers crossed, hopefully it'll all be over by then.
Yeah, it's already kind of slowing down, I think. Last I heard, the rate of new cases in China had slowed right down. So, it's still a few months away. So with any luck, touch wood, by the 30th of May, it'll be a non-issue anyway.
Or it'll be fantastic inspiration for some of your books.
Absolutely.
You speak a lot about the independent community. Obviously, you guys are indie authors. I'm an indie author. You're running an event for indie authors. What I want to ask is how is it that you're so steadfast in terms of remaining indie? Have you guys ever thought about going traditional? Are you sort of so passionate about independent that this is where you're going to stay?
I am actually officially hybrid author because I've got a lot of stories in anthologies with small presses.
I did notice that in some of my research. Some good names on those as well.
So I've worked with small presses, and I've got a couple of novella ideas in my head that when I actually have the time to write them, I will be approaching independent publishers with them rather than doing it myself. I am a big fan of not having all your eggs in one basket and trying different routes. And I think working with publishers is a really good way to learn. You learn so much that you can then apply to your own independent business. So I absolutely love being a hybrid author, and that is something that I will continue to pursue whenever I have the chance.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a bit more like Indian proud. I think everyone has to make their own choices, and I'm really glad that, you know, there are other options out there for other people, because indie is not the right route for everybody. And I've certainly had my moments, and Angeline knows this, where I've been like, I can't do it anymore, it's too hard. There are definitely things about being an indie that I find to be a really big challenge. You know, the publishing side of it, the marketing is hard, and it's not right for everybody. And I've considered going with a small press, and I still would consider it, but for now it's not really quite on my radar. I'm really happy to have the control and the freedom that I have being independent, and I'm a really strong advocate for that. I think, you know, as a woman, as a feminist as well, the fact that women now in the publishing industry we can choose ourselves, we don't have to wait to be chosen, I think is a really powerful message, and that's part of my brand. And yeah, I'm really a really staunch advocate of that.
One final question before we go on to our Patreon questions, and it's something that I ask every writer that comes on the show, is why do you write? And obviously take it in turns to answer that one.
In fact, we're both writers who have been writing since we were old enough to hold a pen. I write because my characters won't shut up. Like if I don't write, they keep me awake at night. I actually it's like itching in my actual fingers. It's almost like a physical pain if I don't write. I'm one of those writers, and my characters just will not leave me alone if I'm not telling their story.
Yeah, I just have to write. It's as natural to me as breathing. And whenever I've gone through periods in my life where I haven't been writing, my mental health has really suffered. So I have to write. I just have to keep writing. Couldn't stop.
Fantastic. Okay, over into our Patreon questions now. So these questions have been sent over by the guys over at www.patreon.com/greatwritershare. And the first question is from Ian Middleton, who asks, question for Angeline, although Holly, feel free to take it if it suits you as well. Any book recommendations for someone new to dystopian horror?
Oh, my goodness. Everything by... like, I'm very specifically into... more like the feminist side, so I do apologize if this is going to be a little bit feminist. So anything by Margaret Atwood, of course. Vox by Christine Doucher. Like, oh my god, no book has ever scared me more than that book ever. I had to read another funny book alongside it because it is so heavy going. And here's a male author for you, M.R. Carey. Like, it's more, we're more into like the apocalyptic genre, but absolutely fantastic. I was very late to the party. I've only just recently read the Hunger Games trilogy, but oh my god, yeah.
Do you have any recommendations, Holly?
No, that's definitely more Angeline's genre than mine. So.
Fair. Second question: how do you reward yourself when you've completed a project?
Chocolate.
Cake.
Food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And are you guys quite good at rewarding yourself? Because I know that I personally fail all the time at that. The minute I finish something, I just go on to the next thing and don't even acknowledge that I finished. So is that something you guys are better at?
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer in like celebrating every single milestone, like every tiny milestone. Every time I hit 10,000 words on a project or 20,000, I take a photo of my word count and post it on Instagram, and then I have some chocolate. It's just an excuse to eat lots of chocolate, I think.
Yeah.
What's your chosen chocolate and cake of choice?
Lint chocolate.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'm a Cadbury's girl, but I also really love green and blacks. Just yeah.
And what about cake? Cake was shouted, definitely.
Yeah, chocolate.
Yeah.
Cake. Chocolate cake.
Any cake.
Yeah.
Any cake.
Nice. What is your top productivity tip or the go-to habit that keeps you on track?
Oh, track everything. Track everything.
That's such a Holly answer.
Yeah, it really is. What are you going to say?
Yeah, mine would be don't listen to what everyone else tells you to do. Find your own way.
That's
100%.
better. That's a better answer.
Yeah.
And you often find that most of the people telling you what to do are saying it because they're not actually doing that thing themselves.
Oh yeah, and yeah, I'm putting my hand up. Yeah, I'm really big on goal setting, and that's my thing. And Angeline keeps saying about how organised I am.
Yeah.
I am and I aren't. Is that grammatically correct?
Yeah.
Anyway, moving on.
It's all right. It's not like you're right or anything.
Yeah, I aspire to be organised, I think is the thing. And that there's that, saying about teach what you need to learn. I'm a big advocate of that. And I think when you're trying to get better at something, being an advocate for it and talking about it and encouraging others to do it helps you to do it yourself. So, yeah.
Nice. Last one, favourite place to write?
My desk. I have a lovely I worked in an antique auction house before I started university and fell in love with all the twin pedestal leather top desks. And I dreamt of having one of those for years and years and years. And then I was made redundant from a job. So with my redundancy check, I bought myself a twin pedestal leather top desk. And it is
beautiful.
I love it more than my husband. Don't tell him that. But yes, there's photos all over my Instagram of my desk. I have a bit of a probably unhealthy love affair with it.
Definitely check that out. I'll try and put a link in the show notes to one of the pictures for people who are interested. And now we are going over into our quick fire round, which I know is much anticipated by you both, probably more so than Angeline. What I'm going to do is I'm going to fire 10 questions at you as quickly as possible. Answer them as quickly as possible. Obviously, if you need to say pass, that is an option. This might be a little slower than previous rounds because obviously there are two of you. But I don't know if you guys want to establish an order of who's going to shout out first before we get going.
Yeah, Angeline, you go first.
Oh, great.
Holly has time to think. Okay, you guys ready?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Fantastic. First question, Pennywise or Voldemort?
Pennywise.
Yeah, Pennywise.
What's your favourite TV show of all time?
6 Feet Under.
Firefly.
Preferred sandwich filling of choice?
Ooh, ham and cheese.
Ham and cucumber.
Boats or planes?
Boats, but
Planes.
neither.
Who was the last writer to make you cry?
Oh, goodness. Is it really sad to say myself?
No?
Because honestly, it is.
Yeah?
Yeah, that's great. Mine, I was expecting you to ask who last writer to make you laugh, so I'd kind of prepared that. So that's Julia Scott. I'm reading her Mirror Souls book now, and I cried last night.
Nice. Yeah. What's the worst film of all time?
Oh, League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, or Mr. and Mrs. Smith.
I'm going to go with Razor Blade Smile.
I don't know that.
No, it's the worst film in the best possible way. Everyone should watch it. Howl with laughter. Yeah.
What's your favourite kind of cheese?
Brie. No. Jarlsberg. No. Everything. Any cheese.
Cheddar. I'm just a cheddar person.
I'm the same. Dream holiday destination.
Prague.
Oh, the Caribbean.
What are your proudest works of fiction to date?
I really love my post-apocalyptic While We Were Waiting novel, but The Notary of Godless Street is like my soul project.
Nice.
What I've just finished writing is a set of 3 short stories. They don't have like a unifying title, but they are my proudest achievement so far.
Perfect. Favorite song?
Breathe Me by Sia.
Oh,
Nice.
Somebody to Love by Queen.
Oh, classic. And that is 10 questions. One bonus question is, where can my listeners find out everything about both of you and what you're working on?
Oh my goodness. Well, everything for me can be found at angelinetrevena.co.uk.
Yeah, so everything is on my website at hbline.com.
And together you can find Unstoppable Authors at unstoppableauthors.com. And of course, Indie Fire is at indiefire.uk.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll put all the links for everything that you just mentioned into the show notes for anyone that wants to just click on through and get involved. And I want to just say thank you very much, guys, for joining me on the show. It's been a blast.
Thanks for having us.
No worries. And thank you, everyone, for listening. And I will see you next week.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Great Writers Share podcast. Next week, I'll be with megastar of horror fiction, Jonathan Janz. Don't forget you can get early access to every episode of the Great Writers Share podcast and the chance to ask upcoming guests any of your questions just by becoming a patron of the show. All you need to do is visit www.patreon.com/Great Writers Share and support the show for as little as $1 a month. One more time, that's www.patreon.com/Great Writers Share. Until next time.